Lyons-Muir Church, we believe that we are called to be God's healing and hope-filled congregation, to make followers of Jesus Christ for the positive transformation of our community through lives of prayer, love, forgiveness, honesty, acceptance, and trust. Welcome to Lyons-Muir Church. We're glad you're here. Let us know more about you by filling out the welcome card. You'll find it in the seat back in front of you. If you have any prayer concerns, you flip that card over. You can put the prayer concerns right into the offering plate when it comes around.
Well, good morning. We'd like to welcome Marc Daly this morning as our speaker. He's not ready yet. We've got a couple songs first. But thanks for coming, Marc. He's one of Tim's close friends. We're glad he's here to share with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a pleasure of mine to be here, and you may not realize this, but this church has been instrumental in me becoming a certified lay speaker, because this church raised up Tim. His parents in this church raised up Tim. And Tim, Pastor Tim, has came into my life about 10 years ago at Jackson First United Methodist, and at the time he came to the church, I was about to go to a different church. There were things going on, and I just didn't feel what I had felt before. And then Tim called me and he says, "Hey, the senior pastor and I would like to talk to you about something." And so they asked me to take over the education team. And at that point, even though I'd been a member of the church for 15 years at that point, it was where I started to feel welcome in the church, and where I began to recognize that maybe the calling I've been feeling my entire life could be fulfilled through becoming a lay servant. And as Tim, even though Tim moved on, he encouraged me to do that. So I just, when Tim asked me a couple weeks ago when we were on what we call our yearly Tromley trip, when he asked me a couple weeks ago if I would step in for him, I told him I would think about it. And then, yes, I wanted to do this because I felt like this church has been instrumental in my growth by being instrumental in Tim's life. And so I share with you this morning. Before I share, I ask you to join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, allow us to slow down, not just for today, not just for this moment, as we sit here in church, as we gather to worship you, but allow us to slow down each and every day. Allow us to take the time to spend with you and to know you. And Lord, speak through me today, if that is your will. Be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So if you're like me, and I see most of you are, you're old enough to remember when a video game would freeze and you would have to push the reset button, right? Or you had to hold the power button on a device to reset it because to put the program back to its original settings. You had to perform what was called a hard reset on those devices. Or you may remember when a pinball would get stuck in the pinball machine and you had to give it a good bump, lift the machine a little bit, and of course it would say tilt, and it would reset, and you would basically lose your turn at that point, because the bumpers and the flippers would freeze, and the ball would just drop to the bottom without scoring any more points. Well, a reset allows you to start over, to begin again, and to reconnect to the program and to continue to play the game. It gives you a fresh start. A soul reset works along the same lines. It allows you to reset yourselves and reconnect to the power source, to the light, to the living Word, God. The idea stems from the book Soul Reset, Breakdown, Breakthrough in the Journey to Wholeness by the late Junius Dotson. He was the General Secretary of Discipleship Ministries at the time of his passing at the United Methodist Church. In the book, he shares his personal struggles and how they led to the point where he fainted at a funeral while performing the funeral. He discusses his struggles with depression, anxiety, and striving for success, and how they led him to the idea of a soul reset. Those are things I've struggled with. Those are things that I've had to learn to reconnect with God at times, to bring me back and to reset my soul and to get me back to the point where I felt comfortable doing things again, where I felt comfortable going to sleep at night. Sometimes I would fall asleep and I would have this dream and I would wake up with just this anxiety, and I had to talk to God, and I had to give those problems that I was dealing with to Him, because that anxiety would build up so much in me that I would want to leave the house in the middle of the night, but I knew I couldn't, and I knew I shouldn't. And so I needed to spend that time talking to God and praying to God and resetting myself and preparing myself to go back to sleep. So I discovered this book because I had to take an advanced lay serving class this year to renew my lay speaker certification. And when the schedule came out for the Heritage District, which I'm in, the only class that fit into my schedule, because it was the only class where they allowed online, was the Soul Reset class. I'm like, oh, okay. I read the description. Okay, I like this. They sent me the book, and I started reading the book. And that's when I realized, wow, God knew what I needed at this point in time. He knew I needed to be reminded He was right there at every step. In the book, Dolson describes a soul reset as a hard stop of our chronic busyness, a deep look inward and an intentional look to God, and a more holistic journey forward that more closely resembles an abundant life in which Jesus calls His disciples. So let me tell you a joke. A husband and wife are driving home from church on a Sunday. After 50 plus years of marriage, the husband's driving, the wife is seated on the right side of the truck. And while they're driving, they're reminiscing. And the wife talks about, I have always loved it when we would be together and we would hold hands as we rode along in the truck. And I felt the warmth of your presence. And the husband agrees with her. He said he missed those days too. Then he looks over and he says, I'm sitting in the same place I've always been. It's you that's moved. Many times I feel like God is talking to us and saying to us, hey, I'm right here. It's you that's moved away from me. A step with God, lost and wandering, unsure of what lies ahead. I find myself lost in the busyness of life. While I have older children, we have 2 young daughters who are very active in sports. I'm a teacher at the school. I'm a coach. I coach cross country and track, and we also help to run the athletic boosters. So our schedule is very packed. And our girls play travel volleyball and do dance, and so we just don't often have a free night. So sometimes I get lost in that busyness of life and the desire to accomplish more and try and get more things done. My wife said the other day, I really would love to have like another hour in the day. Wouldn't we all, right? Something we could fit it all in, to be everything for everyone while having time for myself, or time for ourselves, and time to connect with God. Sometimes those days roll into another. The weeks begin to pile up, and before you know it, another birthday has come, another year is over. And yet, nothing's changed. You feel less connected. You feel less available. You feel stressed out. You feel anxious. Maybe you can relate to the authors of Psalm 42 as they cry out to God for help in the psalm. They crave God like a deer craves streams of water. Their whole being craves God. They thirst for him and wonder when they will see his face. They've been surviving by their own tears as they struggle to get through the days. They're crying out to God, but they're unable to see him. Others taunt them, wondering, hey, where's your God now? Why isn't he helping you? The psalmist can remember times when they could go to worship and they could celebrate with others, but they don't see a future where they will return to celebrate and worship with others. They ask themselves why they're so depressed and so anxious. They feel as though God has forgotten them. The struggle to recognize God and to feel his presence is beyond their comprehension. Then they remember to hope in God, for they will experience God's life-giving presence again. The authors of Psalm 42 are listed as the sons of Korah. And if you think back to Exodus, I believe it is, Korah is one of the leaders who led a rebellion against Moses and his brother. I think his brother's name. And then God rid the world of Korah and his followers. But the sons of Korah were still there. And they were banished from the community, but they were still seeking God. So if you have ever felt disconnected from God, wandering in the wilderness, unable to feel his presence, staggering in the dark, you probably wondered when you'd hear from him. Remember, it isn't God that's moved away from us. He has always been there. Think to yourself, what's drawn me away? How can I get back? And then our other scripture, as we think about what's drawn us away, we can look at Luke. Sorry, it's not Luke. Yes, it is Luke 10:38 through 42. And Jesus is traveling with his disciples. And Martha invites them into her home. Jesus began teaching while he's in the home, and Martha's sister Mary is sitting at his feet listening. Martha was trying to prepare a meal and get things ready and make sure the guests had what they needed. Martha went to Jesus to complain that Mary wouldn't help her with the work, and she wanted Jesus to direct Mary to help. Most of you have probably had a similar situation in your life. Either your sibling was ignoring the work, and you went to your parents to ask them to make them work, or one of your children has come to you to complain that another was not helping you. Not helping with the chores they were asked to perform. But instead of directing Mary to help Martha, Jesus turns to Martha and says, excuse me. Sorry about that. Instead of directing Mary to help, Jesus turns to Martha in a scene that reminds me of Jan Brady's cries of, "Marcia, Marcia, Marcia," in the Brady Bunch. And he says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and you're upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and that will not be taken away from her. Are we like Martha? Are we too concerned about unimportant things? Or are we like Mary and choosing to spend time building our relationship with Jesus, seeking out his teacher, or his teaching, and learning from him? Do we spend the worship service wondering how much longer the service will be? Wondering if we can get home in time to watch the Lions versus the Jaguars kickoff? Are we thinking about what we need to do for the week? Are we worried about getting our children to practice, or whether they will finish their homework, or how we can squeeze another hour into the day? Well, I can't answer any of those questions for you, except that the Lions kickoff is at 1 o'clock. So when I'm not standing up front, I catch myself asking these questions or thinking about these questions. I can disconnect from the teaching, even though I know I need to connect with Jesus every week. The thing I do to help me stay connected to the teaching is to write down key ideas or doodle about what is being said. My bulletins usually look like a small child's homework assignments with drawings and writings all over the paper. One of the practices I was reminded of while preparing for this message is to walk into worship asking God what he wants you to learn from this time. But Sunday worship isn't enough time to reset. It isn't enough time to connect with Jesus. We need to be intentional about connecting with him. Dodson invites us to use the words of Matthew 11:28-30 as a definition of wholeness. In those verses, Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find a rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." If we're to come to Jesus with our burdens and feel his rest, we must be intentional with our practices. Our practices that connect us to Jesus and remind us of his grace and mercy and love. Some of the important practices mentioned, explored in Soul Reset are prayer, silence, solitude, confession, journaling, physical exercise, small groups, worship, and practicing the presence of God. Jesus, if we follow his example, he was known to get away from the crowds and pray. We should follow that example and use prayer to connect with Jesus. Our time spent praying and listening for Jesus' guidance is putting the first things first. It can be first thing in the morning or last thing at night, or even throughout the day. You can pray the Lord's Prayer and stop to think about each line as you pray. Have I forgiven other people their trespasses? Because God's forgiven me mine. Has he given me my daily bread? I need to be thankful for that. You can use breath prayers, where you repeat short prayers with each breath. You might breathe in and say, "Lord Jesus," and then breathe out and say, "Have mercy on me." We can go through our day and we can thank God for the moments that bring us joy. We can ask forgiveness for our bad decisions. We can look back and see where we experienced Jesus' love and grace. Prayer and time reading the Bible can serve as the jumper cables to restart your connection with Jesus. These practices allow us to connect with Christ, to turn to him when we feel lost and connected. Other things we can do, spend time in nature and recognize the beauty of the creation. That's another way to connect with God. Set your cell phone to do not disturb and thank God for the animals and the plants. Be quiet and allow God to speak to you. I get up at usually somewhere between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. And people ask me why I do that. I need my quiet time. In our house, there's not a lot of time for quiet time after 5 a.m. So I get up to make sure I have that time. Also, there are some songs that I wanted to mention that remind me of ways we can find God. There's a country song by a guy named Larry Fleet. It's called Where I Find God. It can be a reminder to us that God is always with us. The lyrics spoke to me the first time I heard them. Sorry, I'm going to have to expand the view here a minute. My eyes aren't working as well. That day out on the water, when the fish just wouldn't bite, floated around, was just so quiet. And I could hear my old man saying, "Son, just be still, because you can't find peace like this in a bottle or a pill." And then he says, "From a bar stool to that Evinrude, Sunday morning in a church pew, in a deer stand or a hayfield, an interstate back to Nashville, a Chevrolet with the windows down, me and him just riding on. Sometimes whether I'm looking for him or not, that's where I find God. Sometimes late at night, I lie there and listen to the sound of her heart beating and the song the crickets are singing. And I don't know what they're saying. No, I ain't. Oh, and I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds like a hymn to me. No, I ain't too good at praying, but thanks for everything." Worship music, too, whether it's traditional hymns or contemporary Christian music, can provide a different type of connection. It can help to set the mood for your day or to help you relax after. Songs like Jeremy Camp's "Give Me Jesus" provide a reminder to seek Jesus throughout your day. In the morning, when I rise, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, just give me Jesus. When I am alone, give me Jesus. The lyrics remind me that the worldly treasures that we tend to covet mean nothing. What we need is that connection to Jesus. Other songs that have helped me through some difficult times with God are "Gonna Be a Lovely Day" and "Looking for You" by Kirk Franklin. They're contemporary gospel songs. I used to work as a behavioral consultant in an elementary school. I would have to get myself prepared every day. And one of those ways I would do it is listen to these songs. "Gonna Be a Lovely Day" is a remix of the old Bill Withers tune. A lovely day that makes Jesus the focus of the song, that helps the singer to be reminded that Jesus provides the light when it's dark and dreary. "Looking for You" is another song about seeing Jesus, connecting to Jesus, and knowing He provides the strength to get through the pain. We're going to sing a song shortly, "Blessed Assurance," one of my favorite hymns of all time, that also just gives you that warmth and that connection, or at least for me, it does. The sons of Korah expressed some severe depression when they were, because they felt disconnected from God in Psalm 42. I don't know if you've ever experienced, excuse me. Sometimes it's hard to know I speak the language, let alone teach it. I don't know if you've ever experienced depression, but occurrences of depression have risen in the last 4 years. As we felt isolated by social distancing, more children are learning online, more workers are working from home, more disruptions are happening day to day. Political divisions are leading to angst and frustration, not only online, but in our real lives. Our time at home has led to a greater use of our phones and our devices for scrolling social media. It's important to think that when we find ourselves doing those things, to think about how is it with our soul? How do we feel when we go through the device? When we spend that time just looking at what other people are doing. It's important to check on your friends and your family and how it is with their souls. It may be even necessary to speak with a professional if you're experiencing moderate to severe depression or anxiety that interferes with maintaining your daily task. So whenever you've been distracted by busyness, seeking success or the events of life that brought you down, and you're led to disconnect from Jesus, you need to find a way to get back to the main thing. If we're to come to Jesus with our burdens and we're to feel his rest, we must be intentional with those practices of connection. Those practices that connect us and remind us of Jesus' grace, Jesus' mercy, and his love. As the stewardess tells people on every flight, we must first take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. For when we receive God's grace and mercy and love, we open ourselves to showing others God's grace and mercy and love. Amen. Please join me in a short prayer. Heavenly Father, as we go out this day, or go about this day, and we spend time going through our lives, doing the things that we do. Help us to find ways to reconnect with you, to grow in our lives with you, to see where we can notice you in the everyday moments, and to give thanks to you for all that you give us. We ask this, Lord, in your name. Amen. As we prepare to leave today and as we go out through the week, I want to share with you the Franciscan fourfold blessing. May you be blessed with discomforted easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you will have love, or so that you will live deep in your heart. May you be blessed with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people and the earth, so that you will work for justice, equity, and peace. May you be blessed to shed tears for those who suffer, so you will reach out your hand to comfort them and change their pain into joy. And may you be blessed with a foolishness to think that you can make a difference in the world, so you will do things which others say cannot be done.